Welcome to Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, the podcast that gives you an unfiltered, behind-the-scenes look at what it's really like being a woman in the middle who's over 50 and following her entrepreneurial dreams. Grab a superhero cape, girlfriend, because you deserve one. I'm your host, Master Certified Life Coach and Midlife Mentor, Suzy Rosenstein, and I am excited to inspire you with interviews that feature all of this midlife amazingness. Let's go. Hey there, welcome back to the show. We have another really exciting interview ahead of us about having the power to change your life no matter your age. Today, you're going to be meeting Debbie Weiss, a woman in the middle entrepreneur who became an author after being widowed in her late 50s. Welcome to the show, Debbie. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, Suzy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and to chat with you today.
Well, I was so happy to see your smiling face in my Zoom square. I know we're going to have a great conversation about your midlife entrepreneur story. We're going to be talking about your business and what's going really well, and also what midlife issues might be getting in your way, a little here, a little there to some extent, and are challenging for you in your life as well as a business owner. So we're going to start with my favorite question. How old are you? How long have you been an entrepreneur? And what is it that you do? Just tell me the story, your entrepreneurial journey, and take it away.
Sure. So I'm 61, heading towards 62 in a couple months. Proud to say that.
We're both born in the same year.
Yay! 1963. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
I have been an entrepreneur in the online space since late 2020, and somewhere I never expected to go. I actually, through a series of listening to different podcasts and just kind of following the moving, bouncing ball along the path of curiosity, wound up in an online mastermind. Didn't know what a mastermind was. It was for people earning 0 to 500,000. So I was earning 0, which was perfect. And I decided I'm going to join to try and sell this basically supplement product that I really liked. But when I joined and there were 150 people in this mastermind, I felt like I fell into the Wizard of Oz. I had no idea that any of this existed. And I was listening to all these people who were different coaches. And I had never heard of that. I had only heard of, a life coach or a job coach or those kinds of things. And when I heard the variety that was out there, and I'm like, I had in my head, well, what do you need to do? What are the certifications? What are the degrees you need to have? And they all kept telling me life experience. And I thought, well, gee, what do I have experience in? Well, I have been a family caregiver since I'm 17 years old to 3 different family members, my father, my oldest son who has special needs, and then my husband. There you go. There must be other caregivers out there. I can help them. And that is what started me along my path. I have taken many twists and turns since then that we can talk about, but that's how it all began.
Now, as it was happening, were you watching yourself and thinking, what the heck is going on here?
Oh my gosh, yes. And it was really also kind of simultaneously that I was introduced to the whole idea of personal development. And the more I started reading, thought to myself, if other people can do this, why can't I? And that's really what just kind of kept me going and kept me curious. And honestly, it was exciting because I do have a full-time career. I am an insurance agent. It's my second career, but I've been an insurance agent for 30 years, and I have a small team of midlife women that work for me, and they're amazing. So I did have that, but I was just searching for something else, more fulfilling, something with more purpose that I would feel a little more connected to, but I had no idea what it was. And I just really the last 4 or 5 years have been personally the most challenging, but also the most exciting.
So when this was happening, this mastermind experience, which I can't even imagine how bizarre that was. Like when I had a regular job for 29 years in several jobs, but the last one was 19 years. And I remember when I first started to meet entrepreneurs, it was in direct sales. And so that was my introduction. And I joined a couple of those companies and I started to learn about relationships, relationship marketing. I started to understand a little bit about sales just to get my feet wet. You can see, wow, there's a whole world out there that I know nothing about. Like I'm very familiar with get a credential, get experience, apply for a job, get hired, and follow the rules, right? And so this opportunity to create something on your own, even though in direct sales, it wasn't totally your own product or anything like that, but usually you get involved with something that you love or that you've purchased or something like that. But what I realized, my story is I was stuck for 5 years and I realized I'm looking for something. What am I looking for? I know I'm meant for more. And the one thing I was able to identify before I got laid off was that I missed working one-on-one with people. So the kind of relationships I had with people were at a project management kind of level. It wasn't one-on-one where I was developing more involved relationships. And that was the one thing I could put my finger on, but I certainly didn't know what was going to happen. But that's what introduced me to entrepreneurs. And then eventually I met somebody with a podcast. And this is when I was such a late adopter to my smartphone. I had no clue. I'd never listened to podcasts. And that's what did it. And for me, the podcasting seemed very doable, even though the tech was scary. But I had been fascinated with sound and recorded sound and talk radio since I was 9 and asked for a tape recorder for my birthday, right? So it goes way, way back. But seeing what's possible with other people, if that's the only thing you got from that mastermind, it was worth it.
Oh my goodness. It was that and so much more. I felt like their mother or grandmother because I would say the average age was probably 30. And, the leader encouraged you to schedule one-on-ones with people. And so I did that. For me, it was a sizable amount of money, especially when I was introduced to this coaching space and the first online course that I took from listening to a podcast host who had her own course. And when I saw the price, I almost fainted because one of the reasons I wanted to take the course was to help me make more money. And I thought, okay, I'm trying to get out of a financial situation. You want me to invest this much money? This seems counterintuitive to me. And I kept finding myself going back to the website, going back to the link time and time again. And again, I think when I look back on my journey, and even now, I try and always remember, listen, this is happening to you because you were meant to join that particular course. And it was eventually that course that led me to this mastermind, that you can always go back and retrace the steps. And I remember taking the course and I wanted her to give me the answer.
Sure, we love certainty.
Yep.
Thinking there is certainty. What a joke that is.
Exactly. I'm like, I knew this, I am a native New Yorker. It's like, I knew it. I was ripped off. I should have listened to my first gut instinct. She's not telling me anything. And week after week, I kept waiting, like, where are the steps for me to make more money? And the course was about mindset. And for me, that was my real first introduction to mindset. And, that kind of changed everything. And then I realized, oh, it's not about somebody else giving me the answer. It's about them helping me to find the answer on my own.
Right. And the other thing you're touching on, which is so fun to watch, is this struggle with putting yourself first and investing in yourself.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Right. And I remember it very clearly, too. I was struggling. I did exactly what you're doing. I was asking her a million questions. I was trying to make the decision. And I remember it was $3,000, the first course that I took. And the idea of spending that on myself without a guarantee, it was, I felt sick to my stomach. And then now, 10 years into doing this work, I'm always thinking, man, if my kid would have come to me and said, Mom, I'm really interested in this thing, it's a university course or whatever it was, I would say, of course.
Yeah.
I believe in you. Here you go. But when it comes to ourselves, oh my goodness, it's a whole different story. But just being around people who are thinking bigger than you've ever thought before is so unique. And so many times, so many of our friends and the circles we go in haven't experienced that kind of lens on the world and on possibility.
Absolutely. I can say that I think that my closest friends thought and possibly still think that I'm crazy.
Sure.
They don't understand. They just cannot relate. They're okay. They're of similar age and starting to think about retirement and all of the things and slowing down. And I'm like, no way. I'm more excited than I ever was. Retirement, like, I'm not interested in that. I'm, going to continue on this journey until the last breath I take.
You know what, Debbie? I don't know how many people I've interviewed on this particular podcast yet. Probably 160, 180, something like that. And of all those women entrepreneurs over 50, there's only been less than a handful who have talked about retiring or selling their business. The vast majority, and some of these ladies were in their 70s and 80s, they are jazzed about their business. Just like what you're saying, just like I feel. It's fascinating because when you're an entrepreneur, you're doing something you love. You're challenging yourself. And yeah, it's a very unique experience. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, tell me a little bit about what happened when you became a caregiver for your husband and like that whole pivot and transition. And just, of course, just say what you want to share.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I'm an open book. So you can ask me anything. So my husband actually had worked with me at my insurance agency for over 20 years. And I remember when he was 6 years older than I was. And I remember when he turned 50, I used to joke, boy, I think you hit male menopause because you're crankier, you're just not as fun, you don't want to do anything. And that trajectory kind of continued, and his health, he was never the healthiest and never took the time to try and take care of himself. And his health definitely declined, but not just his physical health, also his mental health. I didn't realize that he had been suffering from anxiety and depression. I didn't have a label for it at that time. And so eventually, probably around 2019, maybe, one day he just walked out of the office and said, I'm never coming back. Not to our marriage, but never coming back to work. And, we each had our own specialties in the office. And honestly, he was the born salesman. He was the one who could just basically, shoot the breeze with anyone. And I am so much more uptight about getting back to someone in 30 seconds and thinking, they're going to be mad and he was very relaxed. But he was a little too relaxed because his ADHD also kind of made him a procrastinator. And he walked out and he had stacks of papers up that would, cover his head. And he left. And I said, okay, you're not going to come back, but let me bring these papers home and we can go through them and you can just tell me what I need to do. Nope, nothing. He would not, and nothing. And a woman who's actually worked for me for 28 years, she and I spent months going through, trying to figure out what the story was, contacting people and apologizing. And of course, everybody was very kind about it. And so I had hoped that once he no longer had the stress of working, because let me also say that we kind of had role reversal in the traditional sense of the word. I don't know how to cook. I think probably in 30 years that we were together, I probably loaded the dishwasher twice. I didn't food shop. He loved it all. And I hated it all. And that made us a perfect match. But his cooking, his food shopping, it had also slowed down. So I thought, okay, look, he's not going to be at work. I'm going to figure that part out. At least now he'll be home and he'll have time. And that didn't happen. He continued to decline. It kept going in that trajectory until he wouldn't get out of bed for many days. And my oldest son, who I mentioned, also has some issues. He also struggles, has mental illness issues. And my son had been hospitalized in 2020, and this was maybe 2021. And he said, no, it was 2022. And he said, Mom, he needs to go to the hospital. Eventually, he was hospitalized for depression and anxiety, and he came out with a new lease on life, and all of us were hopeful for the first time in a long time. And then 6 weeks later, out of the blue, he gets diagnosed with terminal blood cancer. It was
Wow.
just the cruelest timing of everything. And so at that point, I'm, like I said earlier, very, very fortunate that I have this amazing team of women at my insurance office. And so I was able to stay home. My husband died 6 months, almost to the day after his diagnosis.
Wow, Debbie, man, life's not fair.
Nope, it isn't. And my parents used to always tell me, and it isn't fair.
No, it is not fair. So after that happened, what was the trajectory then like for you to become intrigued by doing something different, like the writing or whatever your next step was?
Yep. So I wound up pivoting from the name of my business, which I still love, was Caregiver Support Squad. And it was trying to teach family caregivers to prioritize their self-care, which, as you alluded to before, it's so hard for all of us to do that. But people who are caregiving, it's even harder. You feel selfish, you feel guilty, there's no time, there's, all the reasons. And
Debbie,
unfortunately,
I can't believe you just said that, because just a few hours ago, I delivered a webinar on that topic.
you're kidding.
I can't believe that this always happens where something comes up in my community and I'll say, oh my gosh, like the client I'm talking to, I'm like, oh my gosh, the episode coming out this week is exactly on that topic. Yeah, 12 o'clock.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny
Wow.
because you know what? It was my life. I became my father's caregiver when I was 17 and he was 45. He had a massive stroke. Back then, that was 1981. Back then, everything was different. And so he became permanently disabled. My parents got divorced. I have one brother who's 4 years younger. And my dad was my responsibility. He lived for 30 years. And so I found myself at such a young age dealing with what people our age deal with, not what 20-something-year-olds deal with, right? I mean, I didn't know what the difference between Medicare and Medicaid was, and all the things, because money was an issue. So I always had to know that. And we had to move them around, and private disability, like the whole, again, things that maybe in midlife we're aware of. In our early 20s, we're not.
No.
And so I did, over time, grow bitter. I did. I was exhausted, especially then once I had my own family and, my own life struggles leading up to that. And then my oldest son was diagnosed on the autism spectrum when he was 2. And so I was dealing with that struggle and still taking care of my father. My brother lived in another state from the time he was 25, so he was of no help. And I never did take time for myself. Who had time? That's what I told myself, right? There is no time between worrying about my business and, at that time, my son. And then I have a younger son who's 21 months younger. And my father, at that point, he was in a nursing home. So running to the nursing home, running here, running to the office, all the things, right? So you tell yourself you have no time, and you tell yourself that you take a back seat. But what that caused me to do was to burn out, was to always be angry, always be on edge. I started at different times in my life to have physical manifestations of the stress. My eye would twitch, my heart would race, all the things. And unfortunately, it probably took me 30 plus years to realize, no, it's not selfish. It's imperative, because was I showing up as a great caregiver to my father? No way. I was jumping down his throat a lot. I mean, I hate to say it, but I was.
That's authentic, man. How could you not? I mean, I'm still stuck on when you started caring for your dad.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is what it is. And looking back, right, I think as we all can do that, it did give me so much because we can all look back on our struggles and realize that made me the person I am today.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't look at it as anything other than that, and that I'm really glad that I was there for him. I just now wish I had showed up a little kinder and gentler some of the time, but it was because I wasn't prioritizing myself.
Right. So, but you're going through grief with your husband's passing. What motivated you to pursue being an entrepreneur?
Well, so I'd already
You already were an
been
entrepreneur with the
I
insurance.
already
Yeah.
was in that space. I had just pivoted. And at that point, I, through another series of events, decided that I had done some speaking and I really enjoyed speaking from a stage. And when I was talking to my coach about launching a speaking career, it kept coming up. Well, your story, your life is so interesting. You should really write a book. And I would say, that's very funny. My first job, actually a CPA, and now I'm an insurance agent. CPAs and insurance agents, they don't write books. I was the person who in college would say, does that class have a term paper? Because if it does, I'm not going to register for that class. So I thought the only way that a book will ever happen is if I pay for a ghostwriter. One, I don't have the money. I don't even know where to find a ghost. Like, what is that? Is that a thing? I didn't know. And listening to a podcast that I didn't typically listen to, I heard a woman being interviewed who helped first-time authors get their stories out there. And I really connected listening to her. And again, same kind of theme. It's like, Deb, this is happening for a reason. At least go talk to her. And I did. I loved her. She was launching a, small group coaching program. And I'm a big fan of, intimate group anything for people all, trying to do the same thing or seeking support for the same reason.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, should I, shouldn't I? I was so scared because I had so many limiting beliefs in my mind. Like, I'm not really a writer. I don't know how to write. Now, I'm sure you remember, or maybe not, but I think most people of our age remember, like, Dick and Jane, the Dick and Jane books.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I envisioned. Someone's going to read my book and they're going to be like, this sounds like see Dick run, see Jane run. That's what my sentences are going to be like. So I'm about to hit join and my husband gets diagnosed. And I was talking to a therapist at the time and I said, I'm embarrassed. I'm even bringing this up. I was, I'd been thinking about doing this. Obviously, I'm not going to do it now. I'll wait for another time. And she said, I disagree with you. I think now is the perfect time. And I said, the perfect time? I don't know what's going to happen. I had no idea what's going to happen. What if I can't show up one week? What if there's homework and I don't do it? What if they make me read out loud and I'm embarrassed? And she said, who cares? And I was like, yeah, here I am, whatever age, 58, 59, still thinking about that, worried about what everyone else is going to think. And so I joined. And my husband did right from the get-go. He was in the hospital probably in July. He was diagnosed the end of June. And he was in and out of hospitals. It went bad fast. And I didn't really, I enjoyed the group. It was only 4 or 5 of us, and everybody was, sharing what their goals were. And they wanted to have the first draft of their manuscript done by whatever the date of the end of the 4 months. And I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to say that, but I have no expectation. Long story short, after about 6 weeks of me kind of trying to, I think for me, there's different kind of writers I learned. I had to understand where I was going. I couldn't just start to write. And once I had that dialed in and I had the outline, then I was much better because it was my memoir, and it's really just a series of stories of different things that have happened in my life, kind of in chronological order. And once I had the story out there, I could then just every day open the outline, take a look and say, what do I feel like writing about today? What I did was I made sure every day to schedule time to write. So whether I had to get up and start writing at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning before my husband woke up, or I needed to bring all my stuff with me to the hospital, and when he was sleeping there or went for a test, I would write there. And whether it was 10 minutes or it was an hour, it didn't matter.
Right.
And my therapist was right. It was the most difficult thing I've ever done, taking the circumstances aside, just the writing part, but it was also fulfilling and exciting because look at me. I'm doing it. I
And
am
you gave yourself
actually
purpose
doing
and
it.
structure,
Yep.
right? Wow.
Nothing better than that to kind of fuel the fire to have you keep going.
Yeah. No,
And
it's really interesting. It kind of surprised me as you were telling that story. I thought the writing started after.
no, no.
Wow.
And I've actually had people actually had a little bit of a hater person who said, "Oh, I can't believe she's trying to capitalize on being a widow." And it's like, lady, no, you don't know
Oh,
the story.
I don't
No, I'm
see it
not
that
saying you're
way.
no, I know that, but I'm just saying
Wow.
it was sorry, it was before that. And when he died, I was 3 stories shy of finishing. And it was supposed to be to the editor. He died on December 30th, 2022. It was supposed to be to the editor January 14th. Of course, they told me, don't be ridiculous. We'll extend the date, blah, blah, blah. And after you lose someone and all your loved ones come into town and surround you, and then they leave, and there you are. And they
Yep.
go back to their regular lives, and your life will never be the same. And I sat here in this room because this was actually a room that we turned into a bedroom for my husband for the last year of his life. And my brother had actually helped me turn it around before he went back to where he lives out of state. And I thought, the writing got me through the last 6 months. I'm not going to wait. I'm going for that January 14th deadline because I need it. I need it for my sanity. And I did. And I turned it in on that day.
That's grit, my friend.
It saved me. It really
Yeah, it
did.
saved you.
Yep.
Exactly. It saved you. Sometimes the most surprising things are exactly what we need.
Yep.
You could have never anticipated that.
Never. And I'm grateful for that therapist who I don't see any longer, but it was all her.
Yeah, she's
Because
brilliant.
Yep.
Wonderful. Now, how would you say that being an older woman, and of course we're older and wiser, affects
Absolutely.
being an entrepreneur and vice versa? What have you noticed that you think, in your opinion, in your life is age related?
I think that, just like you said, the wisdom, right? We've seen a lot. We lived through a lot. Nothing much surprises us anymore, I don't think. Even though we're dealing with things that, on the flip side, as you said, you're not great with technology. I'm fine with it as long as it works. But if it doesn't, I'm in trouble. I also, the whole social media thing, when I first learned or, entered this world, and it's like, okay, you're going to have to make a video. Like, oh my goodness, a video. First, it's what am I going to talk about? Then, what am I going to be wearing? How is my hair and my makeup going to be? And the first couple of times that I made a video for social media, I worried about all those things. I wrote out what I was going to say. I tried to memorize it. I had it on index cards, trying not to look like I was reading, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, I'm not going to be able to do this on a regular basis, however many times they're telling you need to post. And one day I was walking my dog, no makeup, hair in a ponytail, right after exercising. And I had something on my mind. And I just pressed record. And I said it. And I put it out there. And it was so freeing
Mm-hmm.
that after that moment, I never, ever worry what I look like. And sometimes I look and I went, oh man, you really don't care what you look like. You look crazy. Your hair's sticking up. But it doesn't matter because I think I want to see someone who's real. I can't stand seeing women our age who try to look like they're 20. We're not. And we should be proud of the way we look. And if you don't like me because my hair is sticking up and I don't have any makeup on, then you're not my person and I'm not your person.
Yeah, and that's okay. Scroll on by.
Exactly. And it was very, very freeing. So I started to really enjoy the conversation that I could have with my followers.
Mhm.
But I don't think I don't know if that came, I would say it probably didn't come as naturally. And I think that younger people, they've grown up with social media. And so it's part
Yeah.
of who they are.
Yeah, it's different. It's interesting. When I first started, so 10 years ago, I had a client who was a guy. I didn't have many guys. I didn't look for them on purpose, but sometimes I would connect with somebody and they reached out. And I remember it was the first time Facebook Live was brand new, whenever that was 8 or 10 years ago. And I remember how nervous I was. I even paid $7 for a course to help me figure it out.
Yep.
Which was so funny to me. But anyway, then I was able to help him. He didn't know about it. And he was 27 at the time, I remember, back in the day. And I remember watching him do his first live. Like it came on, so I watched. He lived far away. And and his approach was so different. Like he wasn't worried about perfectionism. He wasn't afraid if he clicked a button, his whole computer was going to blow up or all the things we grew up thinking
Yes.
back in the day. Plus, he was just more at ease. Like you'd see his finger going to press the button and he really didn't care. And that really was so good for me to see because I was so not like that. But the way we grew up, we did have to be prepared. We weren't just winging it, and we did really want to focus on making it right and looking a certain way, looking pulled together.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is freeing. And I do find that a lot of women our age coming into the space, just last month, I gave a talk I'm in New Jersey. I gave a talk to a group of women realtors from Georgia. And afterwards, so many people came up to me and said, just even for their real estate business, right? They need to get online. They need to make videos. And they're so in their heads just for that reason
Yes.
and looking for guidance and advice. And I think, you just have to just get out of your own head to get out of your own way.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us what you're focusing on now.
So I am. So after I wrote that book, so the first book is called On Second Thought, Maybe I Can. It's my memoir. And I did have to, of course, I got a whole course in my course of the different genres of books and the difference, like, what kind of book am I writing? I'm like, I don't know. Is it a biography? Like, I didn't know. So I had to make the conscious decision. It was not a self-help book, meaning there's nothing. There's just stories. You take from it what you will. There's no advice, nothing like that. But then people said, well, and in the book, I have kind of like a pivotal moment where I started to think a little bit differently. And it was when I turned 50. For me, that was when I realized that I had lost myself. I had lost my laugh. I had, it had gone so quickly, right? Those first 50 years, how fast are the next going to go? And I watched my father have so many regrets. And I thought, I don't want to be that person who has regrets. And I didn't have, as I said, I never had any desire to be a writer or this online thing I didn't know existed. Like, I didn't have anything specific in mind, but I just thought, am I living the life I wanted? No. Do I know what that looks like? I had no idea. And so that kind of started my journey. So people said, well, what did you do? And so then I wrote a second book called The Sprinkle Effect. The sprinkles are little sprinkles of things that you can sprinkle into your life. So it's not just this huge overhaul, because I think anytime that you look at someone and you say, well, I could never do what she does, or that would take too long, or that would be too difficult, it's overwhelming. And none of us can do that. So it's amazing when you sprinkle little actions, habits, whatever it is into your life, that they do add up. And so there's 15 sprinkles, things like action, belief, resilience, curiosity, that kind of thing. And this is more of a self-help book along with a workbook. So that came out in November of 2024. And so since then, I really have been speaking, doing keynote speeches and workshops. And I absolutely, positively love it. Love every second of it. Love the speaking, love the people that I meet. And until I was about 54, I was petrified of public speaking.
Exactly. You and
Petrified.
everybody else, right?
Yep.
Like, it would be the most crazy thing for
Yep.
you to have thought 15, 20
Never.
years ago that this is what you were gonna do. I love that part of this story is you end up doing the thing that you were so frightened of and just
So
never
frightened
felt
of.
like it wouldn't be possible.
And let me
Yeah.
just say before you ask me something else, the only reason that I found this out is because after 10 years of volunteering in an organization and holding every other position other than president, and the reason I wouldn't be president is because the president had to get up in front of the organization, 150 people, and speak twice. I said,
That's what held you
no
back.
way.
Right. Great.
And when I finally had started my journey, I said to myself, really, this is going to be one of those things that you regret, that you never know. Maybe you could have done it. Like there's a little something inside whispering, maybe you could do that. And I remember the moment that they called me up and I was like cursing myself, like, what's wrong with you for agreeing to do such a thing? And in the first few minutes, I told a story. And I looked out into the audience and every eye was looking at me. And it was an emotional story. And I could see the connection. I could see the emotion. And afterwards, when people came up to me to share their story that, mine inspired, I was hooked. I was like, okay, this is the most amazing feeling to be able to
There you
connect
go.
with
You took the
people.
next best step and it felt good and you learned about yourself. I mean, that's so much of what happens when we make these pivots. So
Yep.
good. So how can people best get in touch with you and find your books?
On my website, DebbieRWeiss.com.
And we'll put the link in the show notes, of course, but it's Debbie R. Weiss, WEISS
Yes.
.com.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's the best way. You can get a hold of you directly there.
Absolutely. Or Instagram, of course, Debbie.R.Weiss or Debbie at DebbieRWeiss.com. But
And
too
of
many
course, I'll
things to
have that.
remember.
I know. I'll have that in the show notes too. And the books are available on Amazon and
Yes.
every place.
Yep. All the places and my website.
Amazing. Debbie, thank you so much. I love just sitting down and talking to you. I love my job, I have to say. Meet the best people, but these stories about how women our age are growing forward and doing hard things and discovering so many amazing things about our lives and what we want, how we can contribute, how to feel fulfilled at our age. It's so inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing your story, the obstacles that got in your way, and how you thrived anyway.
Thank you so much for having me, Suzy. It's been wonderful.
All right, that is it for now. If you're listening and loving what you hear, please like and subscribe. Reviews are great too and much appreciated. And if you're a woman in the middle who's 50 or over and an entrepreneur and would also like to come on the show, please go to www.midlifeinterviews.com and fill out an application. We'd love to have you on to share your story. Thanks so much for listening. It's never too late for you to put yourself on your agenda. I'm Suzy Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you again soon. Now, real quick before we say goodbye, if you are connecting with the show and are finally ready to make some changes to regret-proof your life, I want to invite you to apply for the Women in the Middle Academy. It's my transformational midlife group coaching program to help you get clear about what's getting in your way so you can get on with the good stuff. Head over to www.womeninthemiddleacademy.com. Talk soon.